American soldiers are leaving key bases in Eastern Europe. Romania, Poland, and the Baltic countries are preparing to repel possible Russian aggression on their own. The situation is escalating every day, and what will happen next is currently unknown. Hello, my name is Anastasiia Husarieva. Thank you for being with us. Be sure to subscribe and like this video, and I will tell you what is happening and whether the United States has really given up Poland, in fact, and how Eastern Europe will deal with Russian aggression. And of course, what all of this means for us. So, while you're liking this video, subscribing to the channel as I asked, and leaving your comments, I'll explain what's really going on. So, the US plans to reduce its military presence in several Central and Eastern European countries. Specifically, this means withdrawing about 800 American troops from Romania and reducing contingents in Bulgaria, Hungary, and Slovakia. In Romania, this decision was officially announced on October 27th as part of NATO procedures. American troops there are stationed at 3 facilities: Mihail Cogălnicianu, Deveselu, and Câmpia Turții. More precisely, it is not known from which specific base the soldiers will be withdrawn. But there are about 1,000 Americans in the country, so the reduction will be significant. In Poland, they say they were not informed about this, but the decision has already been announced. However, Congress can still change it. At present, the exact timing and scale of the reduction remain unknown. In April 2025, the United States began withdrawing equipment and some soldiers from the Jasenka military airfield. This is near Rzeszów in Poland. For 3 years, this airfield was a key logistics hub for military aid to Ukraine. It was here that most of the weapons and equipment were stored and dispatched. The decision to redeploy was made over several months in close coordination with Poland and NATO allies. Of course, the American military did not disclose how many soldiers left Jasenka or where they were sent. Jasenka was never a permanent base. It was always a temporary center. While it was operational, the United States also built its own garrisons and more secure facilities in Poland. All of this was coordinated with the Polish government, and of course, significant resources were invested in this whole story by the Americans. And the country's Minister of Defense, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz, whom you can see on your screens now, explained that the troops remain in Poland. It's just that the tasks of Jasenka are now being carried out by other allies. NATO has taken responsibility for operations at the airfield, and this decision was made back at the summit in Washington in July. In February of 2025, then Polish President Andrzej Duda assured that the United States was not planning to reduce its military presence in Poland. On the contrary, the troops might even increase because Poland and the US remain reliable allies. Duda also said that he had previously met in Warsaw with the US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and proposed creating a Fort Trump in Poland. According to him, Trump supported this idea and confirmed that Poland is indeed a reliable partner. Already in the fall of 2025, the Pentagon announced that it would stop funding the program for training and equipping the armies of Eastern European countries. This is part of the new course of Donald Trump's administration to reassess and redistribute, to divide up foreign aid. The funding program operated under Section 333 of the American Defense Act. This Section 333 allows the US to provide technical, material, and training support to allies in various regions of the world. Through it, the US military trains partner armies, provides modern equipment and gear, and also helps develop the defense capabilities of various countries, which the United States of America identifies as priorities for itself. And through it, in Europe, the main recipients of aid were Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, countries that could find themselves on the front lines if a conflict with Russia does break out. Previously allocated funds remained available only until the end of September 2026. From 2018 to 2022, the US spent about $1.6 billion supporting its European partners, nearly a third of all the funds from that same Section 333. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, which are neighboring countries situated next to Russia, regularly experience a variety of different attacks from the aggressor state, such as frequent cyber attacks and also acts of sabotage. Amid discussions about peace in Ukraine, fears have grown that Putin might try to test NATO, for example, by invading one of the Baltic countries. He himself, of course, denies such accusations. The newspapers, The Economist, and Financial Times have written that Donald Trump might allegedly make a deal with Putin and reduce the presence of the US military in Eastern Europe. If this really happens, the Americans might leave Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and possibly even Poland and Romania. In this context, we are talking about approximately 20,000 soldiers whom the previous head of the White House, Joe Biden, sent to Europe after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, which took place in 2022. Most of them served in Poland and Romania, and some of them in Ukraine, in the Baltic countries. At the beginning of the year, there were up to 1,500 American soldiers in the Baltics. During exercises, their number in turn could double. Well, there were also NATO forces there. The largest US base in the Baltics is Pabrad in Lithuania, just 10 kilometers from the Belarusian border. About 1,000 American soldiers were stationed there permanently, rotating every 9 months. In Latvia and Estonia, the Americans were present on rotation with several hundred personnel in each country. They had a range of equipment at their disposal, including Abrams tanks, Bradley armored personnel carriers, I'll show them to you now, this is what they look like, and other modern vehicles. The most powerful grouping remained in Poland. We're talking about roughly 10,000 US soldiers. There were armored and artillery units here, aviation and air defense system, marines, large logistics centers, and so on. About 3,000 more American soldiers were stationed in Romania. Around 150 Americans served in Bulgaria and about 1,700 in Turkey. And European experts warn that if the United States of America really leaves, the security of the region will sharply weaken. And this needs to be taken into account. Other allies such as the United Kingdom, France, and Germany may also reduce their contingents. Then Eastern Europe could be left almost alone with Russia. This spring, a tragedy occurred near the Lithuanian-Belarusian border. 4 American soldiers died. They went missing during exercises near the city of Pabrade, just 10 kilometers from the border with Belarus. Along with them, engineering equipment disappeared, a M88 armored recovery vehicle. The search for these soldiers lasted quite a long time. In fact, it went on for several hours. But unfortunately, the soldiers were found dead. According to preliminary reports, it was an accident. The vehicle sank in a swamp. In mid-October, Polish border guards came across an underground tunnel that had been dug directly beneath the border with Belarus. The tunnel started on the Belarusian side and emerged about 20 to 30 meters into Polish territory, passing directly under the barrier. The tunnel was about 1.8 meters high, making it suitable for illegal crossings. The discovery of the tunnel was also confirmed by the Minister of Internal Affairs. Poland's Marcin Kierwiński commented on the situation. According to the Polish side's assessment, the tunnel may be part of organized attempts to bypass the state border. At the same time, Belarus denies any involvement in the incident, which of course surprises us, especially considering the number of provocations that European countries have faced from Belarus in recent years and months, provocations that Belarus of course actively denies. At the beginning of autumn, Poland temporarily closed the airport in Lublin due to the threat of attack drones and even scrambled its own air force to cover the western regions of Ukraine. But soon the airspace was reopened. At that time, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that Russian drone attacks on Poland are part of the war that Putin is waging, and they pose a threat to all of Europe. Zelensky called on European countries and the United States to impose new sanctions against Russian energy resources, because it is precisely from oil and gas revenues that Moscow finances this war. According to him, Putin will be able to wage war as long as Russia has the money for it, which in principle seems quite logical. Since the beginning of 2014, Poland had been preparing for the worst-case scenario when Russia annexed Ukraine's Crimea and the war in Donbass began. In Warsaw, they understood. The threat was real. Polish strategists did not wait for events to unfold and did not wait for developments. They took action, they reformed the army, increased its numbers, purchased modern equipment, created new divisions and territorial forces with tens of thousands of reservists. This was a large-scale effort carried out by our neighbors. By 2024, the Polish army had more than 210,000 military personnel. Among NATO countries in Europe, this is the largest army. Well, of course, after the US and Turkey. And Poland spent a lot of money on armaments. They purchased American Abrams tanks and multiple launch rocket systems. These also included HIMARS systems. About $50 billion were spent on this. In 2023 to 2024, Poland became the largest buyer from the US among European countries. At the same time, Poland was preparing not only its military, the government analyzed which cities were the most vulnerable. In this context, the National Economy Bank identified the Suwałki corridor as a strategic area where the risk of invasion is highest. More than 1.3 million people live there. Warsaw, Krakow, Wrocław, and even smaller cities like Krosno or Ostrołęka are also in the risk zone. Well, that's from the reports we have as of now. Geography, of course, makes Poland a key player. Its borders with Kaliningrad and Belarus are NATO's front shield. Russia can quickly move troops through Belarus and control the airspace, which is why Polish military officials say that the defense of the Baltics will largely depend on Poland's ability to act jointly with the United States of America. At the same time, in Narva, Estonia, right on the border with Russia, there has been increasing talk recently about possible threats from Moscow. The city is unique because a large number of Russian-speaking residents currently live here. And that is precisely why Western analysts often mention it in their negative forecasts. The British publication The Economist suggested that Russia might use the so-called grey zone, stage a provocation, or even carry out a small-scale incursion to see how NATO would respond. And as an example, they specifically mentioned Narva. But the Estonian side remains calm. The Estonian ambassador to the United Kingdom, Sven Sakov, emphasized that Narva is not a pawn on a chessboard, but a real city with real people, and even a small incursion would become a problem for all of NATO, because an attack on one member of the alliance is an attack on everyone. At the same time, German political scientist Carlo Massala described his own scenario of events. He claims that after a possible Russian victory in Ukraine, Narva could become the first target. Supposedly, on March 27, 1928, the city would be seized, partly with the help of locals who would be armed in advance. At the same time, according to his forecast, Russia could try to land troops on the island of Hiiumaa under the cover of tourists. The goal of such actions, in his opinion, is not territory, but to test whether the alliance is ready to defend its allies. Estonian military officials reject these predictions. Firstly, because for a start, Russia would have to win in Ukraine, and at the moment this scenario is impossible. And secondly, Andris Merilo, who is the commander of the Estonian Defense Forces, said that the fate of Narva depends on Estonia itself, and the country is ready to defend it. At the same time, Estonian expert Marek Kov also considers an invasion unlikely. Despite various assessments, Narva remains a sensitive topic nonetheless. Firstly, because of its proximity to Russia and its Russian-speaking population. All of this makes the city a convenient example for the media as well as for experts. But as emphasized in Estonia, there is no need to panic. The defense is strong, NATO is united, and a real attack on Narva today is highly unlikely. And the reduction of the American contingent has already taken place or is planned in the near future, and the exact scale is still unknown. Poland, Romania, and the Baltic countries are actively rethinking their security plans and preparing to act independently. After all, the region is facing new challenges head-on, which unfortunately continue to be generated by the aggressor country, Russia. What should be done about all this? Write your suggestions and thoughts in the comments. We will read them. And of course, I urge you to take care of yourselves. Also, subscribe to our channel, like the video, share it, and we'll see you in the next broadcast. Wash your hands with soap. Bye-bye, everyone.